A VC talking about AI in a room full of AI practitioners, bad idea. Usually we're accused of being artificially intelligent. So I'm Dinesh, I'm with Accel. We've been around for a while. We invest out of offices in Silicon Valley, London, Bangalore. Fairly large fund, fairly large portfolio. We've been fairly active in India as well. Companies like Flipkart. We also heard from Swiggy earlier. That's also a portfolio company. I stayed here, went off to the US for graduate school. Spent a bit of time in large companies, but spent most of my time in a bunch of startups. Was lucky enough to have some of them get acquired. But I've been at Accel now for over almost 7 years, and I focus very particularly on the India-US corridor. So these are companies that might be leveraging India in some interesting way, but going after a global opportunity. And so I work closely with our team here in Bangalore, but I am actually based in Silicon Valley. So, the topic was about building AI companies and trying to build them from here. So I thought, let's just hit some of the basics. One, you obviously want to try and see if there is some genuine India advantage you can bring to the table, and we'll dig into that a bit. You obviously also want to actually have a real AI advantage, right? And you actually want for something in your problem set where you are taking advantage of what AI has enabled. And for the purpose of this talk, AI is sort of the whole bundle. Machine learning obviously drives a lot of what we're talking about. But I think the most important part is to not forget that third word there, right? Company. So you still absolutely have to understand what problem you're solving, right? And maybe it's a slightly terrible analogy, right? But would you really dream about starting a Java company today, right? AI is a tool. Today there is obviously a lot of glamour associated with it, but you really do have to think about it in that framework, right? What is it that you will sort of do with that technology, as opposed to going out with this sort of frame of mind saying, I want to start an AI company. So, is there really such a thing as an AI opportunity? Lots of people think about it in many different ways. I thought I'll take my own stab at it. So very broadly, I break it down into sort of two big baskets, right? I mean, if you think of what this whole recent wave has enabled for us, I think the first big basket is that it's really allowing us to sort of tame the analog world, right? I mean, there was a lot of stuff. If you just look at our regular lives, right? I mean, there is so much analog input. And for the longest time, it was very hard for us to make sense of that at scale. And a lot of our old, sort of technology, rule-based approaches, statistical approaches, they helped us improve very, very gradually. And what machine learning has really sort of accelerated is that whole landscape. So, if you think about audio-visual inputs, right? For us as humans, I think the statistics are that about 96, 97% of everything that we process actually comes through these channels. This landscape has really been transformed, right? I mean, if you think about now how much we can understand text, how we can actually convert text to speech, how much we can understand speech, how we can analyze images, how much we can analyze videos. Right, all of these, I mean, literally in this sort of last few years have taken monstrous leaps. I mean, Amazon obviously provides incredible amounts of building blocks for you to now really take advantage of a lot of this. So at the raw level, we now can make a lot of sense of these analog signals, but then you can sort of build on them, right? You can now combine it with other things that are happening. I mean, just sort of with a very, very quick examples, right? So now, simple things like I can listen I can really discern subtle nuances in what I hear. But now, if I can put a little listening device next to a machine, over time, I can actually start figuring out when that machine is about to fail. And it's really just that one sort of single input that you've taken, just listening to that machine closely. But then being able to combine it with a lot of historical data about what starts happening and how do machines start behaving before they might actually have a fault. Another simple example, right? So now the fact that I can analyze videos, but I can now have video capturing devices that are sitting on drones. A simple thing like a aircraft inspection, where I actually had to have lots and lots of people go all around closely, to try and look for any fractures in the aircraft body. Ridiculously expensive operation. Now can be done incredibly quickly, incredibly cheaply, combining these two things. So for this landscape, what I'd say is, when you're looking at your problem universe, try to look for analog components. Analog components that perhaps weren't as well understood. And now, can you actually take the best of what AI has to offer and make a significant dent in adding that comprehension into the problem that you're trying to solve? The second big bucket, I'd loosely say, it's your data is digital, but it's just been a big mess. And again, it was really hard to use traditional ways of thinking about the data to extract all of the sort of knowledge that was actually hidden in there. So data that is not as well structured as one might want, data that's really, really sparse, data that might have tons and tons of attributes, and for any given data set, you might not have all of those attributes. One easy way that I sort of think about this is, you sort of know what you want, but you really don't know where to start, right? Today, as consumers, we actually experience so many of these solutions. In the earlier panel, of course, we heard a bunch of these. But today, most consumer places, when they start recommending things to you, when they give you a very personalized experience, a lot of that is now being driven by these machine learning algorithms that are able to make sense of a lot of the data that they're collecting. Or, we talked about delivery optimization, dynamic offers that might get created for very short time windows. We don't even realize this, but literally every day as you switch through your mobile apps, you're seeing machine learning in action hundreds of times. So if you're thinking about where to use AI again in your sort of universe, I'd say look for where there is data chaos. What sort of outcomes you want from that, and see if some of these machine learning techniques now allow you to take a fresh stab at that problem. The other piece, right? So is there really an India advantage? And again, I'll sort of share some of my thoughts on how one might think about this. Today, we are the BPO, KPO capital, right? And what that means is that today we are really seeing so much of this, the analog digital interface. In some ways, we are producing the biggest data sets around the world for how humans are working with state-of-the-art technology. And to me, that's actually an opportunity, right? I mean, if you think about how does one look at that boundary, how does one look at the friction that exists there, and how does one use some of these new techniques to really move that boundary? So in the simplest of cases, things like within call centers being able to understand what was being said and really extracting a lot of interesting analytics to improve those interactions. But across, there's so many of these processes today that we power here. Within a 10-kilometer radius of where we are, there is so much going on that can really provide some of these interesting pieces of information, some of these really powerful data sets that I think we have a genuine opportunity to start exploiting and start taking advantage of. So again, when you're trying to think about this, look for where you have some of those analog digital boundaries and try to see if, again, some of these newer techniques really allow you to try and reduce the friction that might exist at those places. I think the other big opportunity that I see is we power so many of these vertical industries around the world, right? So if you look at construction, manufacturing, every software stack that exists in these industries, we have massive teams here who deeply, deeply understand those stacks today, who've actually helped build most of the workflows that power these industries. So to me, again, that's a very powerful data set that we have today. For instance, when I sit in Silicon Valley, very few entrepreneurs want to take on deep vertical challenges. It's not a skill set that comes naturally to them. It's not an ecosystem that naturally puts them with co-founders who bring that kind of expertise, right? So the aspirational enterprise company in Silicon Valley is the next Slack, right? Something nice and beautiful that instantly sort of takes off. But that's where I see we have tremendous opportunity. How do we put together teams that bring a lot of that vertical expertise, combine them with teams that really understand what these new technologies allow us to do with that, and take a fresh stab at bringing improvements into this landscape. And literally, you take any vertical and you look at any of the top 3, 4, 5, 8 software stacks in those, there is experience right here. I'll actually give a very quick example. One of our portfolio companies works with the telco industry. Now, what they do on the front end is a lot of intelligence in a sort of mobile interface that allows people in the field to be super efficient. But to deliver that, they actually have to work incredibly seamlessly with backend systems that these telcos have. Now, how many in this room have heard of NetCracker? Quite a few hands. In Silicon Valley, if I ask that question, literally, there would be no hands. NetCracker is this obsolete system, according to most people. But that is what all telcos around the world are still using to do their service provisioning. And guess what? There are tons of incredibly smart people here who've been doing nothing but NetCracker for 10 years. Now imagine being able to tap into that talent, combine it with talent that now knows how to build intelligent, smart, mobile-first workflows. But on the back end, you have this ability to deeply work with some of these systems. So I think it's heavily underappreciated, but I think over the next decade plus, this is going to be a genuine opportunity for us here. So again, in your realm, what you're looking for then is problems for which you can actually tap into very deep industry sort of expertise. So really, that's I've boiled it down into this sort of heavily brilliant formula. So look for an analog component, or look for a digital mess. Look for the analog digital boundaries. Look for friction that exists there. Look for deep domain expertise. And of course, don't forget that you really, really still want to solve a real problem. And to me, I feel like these are, again, this is only one, sort of one slice of how to think about it. But I do feel like you have to think about the real advantages that AI is sort of bringing to the table. Also look for genuine ways in which we can take advantage of the geography that we operate in. And there is money to be made. So when you rush back and you start your company, don't forget, send your shares to me. Thank you.